welcome to Culture of Paint. In this episode, we're going to take a look at what's caught our eye over the last few weeks in the miniatures painting world. For our main segment, we're going to be chatting all about the mighty Imperial Guard and how collecting and painting them has changed since we've been in the hobby over the past 3 decades. And we'll close out the show, as usual, taking a look at what the hashtag Paint Cultists have been up to. Now, Culture of Paint's aimed at a mature audience, and we might use explicit language and discuss adult themes. Now let's talk about paint. Okay, and we are back in, I assume, not what you lot, I hope, have not just seen has happened. The chat is in there. Who've we got? Frigid Canada is there, lovely. It's not too bad here. It's just great. A couple of familiar names. Dan's got a large glass of Bailey's and a wet palette. Whatever gets you through a painting session. Yeah, but we're looking like we're good to go. So, hi everyone, I'm Henry, and joining me tonight are Matt, Rich, and Ben. How you doing, chats?
Hello, very good, thanks.
Yeah. All good, mate.
So, the reason that we've got Ben on, our commissions man, is tonight's show is all about the beautiful, the wonderful, the amazing, the army I am not going to collect after this conversation.
Yes.
The Imperial Guard.
Yes.
We wanted to do this for ages. Then we got the KDS stands box. We're like, oh, it's going to be a massive guard release. We'll do it then. And now we're not really sure what's happening.
Don't you mean Astra Militarum?
No, I'm speaking low Gothic, Matt. Low Gothic all the time. There's still Imperial Guard low Gothic.
But yeah, we're all old. It's that Imperial Guard.
Astra Militarum's fine. I don't hate it. It's like we've always had Space Marines and Adeptus Astartes, right, for forever. I don't. It doesn't really bother me that Astra Militarum Imperial Guard thing. Like it's very, very much upset some people though. But I'll wager anything does. So what we've got, adult themes, like the swearing caused by painting 100 monopose Talon. Well, they weren't quite monopose, were they? You had like 5 slightly different ones in the box. But let's get on to Guard in a minute. Let's have a look what's caught our eye over the last couple of weeks. So, as per usual, I haven't clicked on the slides. So I have no idea what the first image is.
So first up is.
So do this like picture or no? Describe pictures to me because I am
your pick.
Oh, it's mine, mating, right? Okay, so whilst I practically try and find these pictures. Okay, so I've been wanting to put something of Romans up for my pick of the week for a while. Anyone who's listened to the shows knows I'm a big fan. But he's recently, Massive Voodoo have recently sorted themselves out with a YouTube channel. Tons of great content on there. Go and check it out. As usual, we'll put the links to everything we talk about down in the description. But recently, he's done a series on creating sort of iconic scenes from the Warhammer universes in a picture frame, sort of spilling out of a picture frame, painting it like that. And I just think they're brilliant. We've talked about this style, this different style of presentation, all the rest of it. So then to see it from someone that you follow and you enjoy their work, yeah, just happy days. And I think, is it the Black Templars image?
It is.
Which is just, yeah,
very cool.
Perfection. So yeah, what have you caught any of the new channel of this?
Yeah,
I have done. Yeah, was having a chat to him about it when we were in Monty, and it's all very good stuff.
It's very cool.
His video on ego and miniatures painting about the Jedi and the Sith was very, very good.
I really
liked a good combo about it.
I liked his one about the dusting. It was therapeutic.
Oh yeah. Like sorting out. I've got actually a bit of that today. Matt, if you could stick the slides in the chat for me, that would be fab.
Yeah.
And Brian's saying in the chat, he's put guides up for all of those in his Etsy store. So if you want to go and support the artist, go and check those out. They're very, very cool. But yeah, so that's my one.
Who's up?
Good pick.
You got the link now?
Yes, thanks, mate.
Cool. All right.
I want it.
Next up is.
Oh, I
That's
recognise
me.
this.
That's my pick.
Yes.
It is indeed. So this one's my pick. This is from the original hobby goat, Mr. Ken Cotter. These are fantastic. I was looking for some Imperial Guard and Astra Militarum reference for the show, and these flashed up, and I love them. I think it's really cool. Harakoni Warhawks. So there's a little bit of a nudge for you there, Henry. Just another nudge, another nail in that Imperial Guard army coffin for you. It's gonna happen. Just give in.
And don't they look fab as the Kazakin?
Oh, it's so good, so good. I haven't painted these myself. I was, kind of want another set to do them like this now. So fair play, Ken.
We spoke about it with the crew on last episode, or the one that's recently. We spoke about it with crew, and I am wondering whether the kits that are coming out in Kill Team are maybe getting forgotten about a bit quickly.
Yeah.
When you consider how good they are. Now, I get things like Warcry. It's niche, and it's probably niche within niche. They're pretty much hands down phenomenal kits, every single one of them that comes out for Warcry. But I get why they might not be that interesting to a broad range of people. But I feel like you've got 40k, probably the most interacted with universe of Games Workshops, right?
Yeah.
I feel like pretty much every Kill Team that's come out is still, whether you play that faction or not, you still know about it, you recognise it, you're familiar with it. And things like this, the Krieg, the Orc Commandos, the oh my goodness, the crew, they're incredible.
Yeah, they are.
Like properly amazing.
I don't know if you've all seen the sprues for these in the flesh, but it is nonsense. Yeah. How many extra components, different heads, different gas masks, different faces and everything there are in that box set. It's off the chain.
It builds well though, right?
Yeah, it's not a chore to put them together. It's really quick. I did all 10 in an evening.
Yeah, I think it's just that relentless release cycle it's been for the last 12 months. It just gets forgotten sometimes.
Yeah, true. And I did wonder as well with these, because you had the Guard announcement and stuff quite soon, maybe before them. I can't remember, around the time, right? So we see these kits that, like, we've all already seen the Rough Rider kits, and we've kind of not forgotten about them, but we've seen loads of stuff months ago now, and we still can't buy it.
Yeah.
It feels a bit odd.
There's always something to fill the gap in the meantime, isn't there?
Right, but maybe it's probably another discussion, isn't it? But actually giving the kits room to breathe, and be enjoyed, and also not necessarily showing everything. So, and I know we had many years where it was the opposite, but it just, I don't know, it just feels a little bit like it can steal the thunder sometimes.
Well, that being said, if you want to see someone whose account is regularly filled with painted new releases, this is the account. It's nonsense how productive the account is. So, fair play. Love these. And I think you should do an army of them, Henry.
No, I really love the basing too.
Yeah.
I think
basing.
I think one of the things with the releases is, like you said, the rate, if you look at what they've released this year, like individual squads of stuff, it's almost like they can release them quicker, but they also get kind of like forgotten about a little bit quicker. So like before, if you think back and they would do a new, I don't know, like Chaos Space Marine release, you get tons and tons of them, and that would be the release that you saw. They release it over a few week period for like a month or so, and that would just be you remember it in that month that's what came out. Whereas, especially with Kill Team, because it's not as niche as Walker, but it is still niche. Not everybody plays it.
Yeah.
I do think people do forget about it because it's just not on people's minds, and they're dropping these insane units that are all like from our childhood, or all like our dream units that they're releasing. So if you've been in the hobby as long as we have, I think there is a distinct nostalgia aspect of it. So if you're brand new into the hobby, you might not know what the Kazakin are and be like, okay, cool, they're just dudes,
Yeah.
Fair. Are they are nice size next to the regular troopers as well? They're proper beefy.
Yeah.
They're not just up armored, are they? They're actually like
big dudes.
They're big, yeah.
Nah, these lads have had their Weetabix for sure.
Yeah. I don't know the background amazingly on them, but presumably they are all like super soldiers, right? They are all royal.
Yeah, they're all like genie. They're all genie.
Right. Cool. Awesome. Nice job, Kev. Right. What's up next?
Up next, it's my pick.
Yeah, so this is very nearly my pick as well. This blew up on the feeds I was following.
It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah. I was watching the Christmas episode of Futurama the other day, and it just reminds me of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah,
good.
So good. It's he's entered it into Tarot's Golden Santa thing.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that.
That's so good.
It's the little touches as well, right? Like the red-nosed scarab at the front, and it's just brilliant.
Genius.
In a universe where they can teleport everywhere. Slay.
Yeah. Like with me and Matt were talking earlier today, I was like, I really like that silly Santa gobbo they did, the red gobbo last year on the race grid. Like I want Christmas models each year from them, proper silly Christmas models each year. Like let them get it out their systems once a year.
Just at Christmas, free reign.
Yeah. Free reign, and let's have it.
It's like the on Warhammer Plus the battle report they did, the Christmas one of the Red Gobbo. It's like one of the best battle reports that they've done.
There you go.
And it's stupid as fuck.
We've been playing some War Master in my gaming group, and someone mentioned the other day, like way back when the game was out, there was like a Christmas scenario in White Dwarf for it, where like the Christmas trees moved and like the Huorn and stuff in Lord of the Rings and stuff. Just more silliness the better, please. At this time, just this time, a couple of weeks. I still on my like hobby bucket list is to do the what's his name, Logan Grimner chariot
sled,
but do it with the little deer from the Wood Elves.
Oh yeah,
maybe one.
So I mean, red armor with a white beard.
Yeah, it's
writes itself.
There's barely any work to do other than paint.
Oh yeah, literally.
Yeah. So that black coach you could do something cool with as well. Like do like an undead Santa.
You could do like a Nightmare Before Christmas sort of thing.
Yeah.
That'd be wicked.
That's a stunning model you don't see enough of. Yeah, cool. Great picks. I think Matt, you said you dodged it, didn't you, this time?
Dodged what?
Or did you? Oh no, this was your pick.
This was my pick, yeah.
Sorry, you said to me earlier today, didn't you?
I did have one then, but yeah.
We do have one more. Ooh.
Me!
That's tasty.
Nice.
Yeah. So off this account, I think we featured it before, his Death Guard that he's done, where he has custom sculpted all the helmets and 3D printed them all.
Nice.
It's one of those accounts where I like going and looking at it because the level of dedication he has to the specific armies and things that he's doing is just really good. Like the painting is really good, but it's not like super elite competition level painting, but it's very much very good and doable and just inviting. It's not, there's no intimidation factor when you see something. So, when I look at this account, I find it makes me want to go and hobby.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. This painting is just chef's kiss.
It's that perfect for me. It's that perfect line that's like high end tabletop before you get to like competition level painting.
Like you can have an army of this.
Yeah, you can. And he does. This is to go with his Death Guard that he's done, and it's just the army that he's done is fantastic, and also the amount of effort. So, like the helmet on this is basically a carbon copy of the Games Workshop one that is 3D printed, but he's added the tendrils and mechandrites around the head and 3D printed it all rather than sort of sculpting it. And just the level of detail, the use of really nice transfers, and also the effort he puts into his photographs. Look at that photograph. But the basing, the backdrop, everything. It's a really, really. Oh mate, it's a really. What's the word I'm looking for? Just fun hobby space to be in, and really makes me want to go and do some hobby and do something really fun.
Yeah, it'd make a great White Dwarf article. His stuff.
It really would.
I do like how he's managed to get the sort of the vignette more blurry than the actual main bit, which is pretty cool. some good photo there.
Yeah, something I'm looking to do in next year is up my personal photography skills.
Yeah, I feel like I've taken a bit of a backward step with mine in that I actually had a setup before, and now I just get a shitty phone photo and bang that up. So
yeah, be nice.
Need to do that,
Deserves. If you're going to display them in that medium, then why not?
yeah.
You know.
Were there any other pictures of this, or was it just the one?
Just had time to do this one.
Okay, cool.
It's a great.
Yeah, if you go to the camera,
great color too. Like really,
it is. I'm
great
pretty sure. Pretty sure it was a cult of paint scheme for maybe Sons of Horrors or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, wicked.
I think, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, love the transfers as well. Would love to know where the transfers are, or knowing the amount of effort he puts in. He might have created them himself, but they're like Greco transfers, and they're just
I don't recognise. You get a little bit of that on the Black Shields, old Black Shields thing, but it's not that to the best of my knowledge.
No.
But you know what's really nice? It's tasteful, isn't it? Like this person knows how to put something together. Like, you know, sometimes you'll look at, and I think Knights are often quite a good example. You'll see this big impressive kit, and it will be painted and executed like really quite well. Yeah. But it will often look like someone's just lobbed a load of techniques at it, or lobbed a load of products at it.
Gimmicks.
Like they've just gimmick, right? Or not even gimmicks, but they've just discovered streaking grime or rust pigments and things like that, right? Yeah. And I'm not trying to poo-poo it like it's great fun and everyone should paint how the fuck they want. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. But I think it makes it all the more impressive when you see someone who can really compose a piece. And it definitely, I think anyway, it looks, you can tell. Like, you know, if this was just one that had been painted great with products, you'd almost bang like and keep moving.
Yeah.
But to pause and to look at it, and to as you look at it, there's more layers of interest about it.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, the draw is the level of effort that they've put into it for something that is essentially a gaming piece. And I always just get very jealous of people that go, cool, this is the armor that I'm going to paint, that I'm going to make. I'm going to put tons of effort into every conceivable detail of this so that it's specifically mine. It's slightly unique. It doesn't look like everybody else's, but this is what I'm going to paint for the foreseeable future. They don't get the butterfly syndrome that I suffer from rather badly. So yeah, anyone that can do that, I always get a bit of jealousy.
Dan's saying in the chat, yeah, he made the transfers himself. That account.
Nice. So, it's just, everything's just well done. Like, well done. Like, well done, you.
Great choice, mate. Great choice. Right, let's get into the meat of it. Now, memes. I did have a few sent to us, actually.
Any good ones?
Yeah, but they weren't really hobby related. So maybe we need to caveat it slightly.
Don't just send Henry shit memes.
Try have to be hobby and I'll just reiterate, you're sending them to Rich's account, not the content. Absolutely fine. Right, Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. So a little while back we did an episode on the Skaven, which people seem to really enjoy, where we sort of look back at the design of them, how it's changed over the years, the sculpts, the influences, painting and stuff. So we thought we'd do something similar, not exactly the same, but something similar with the Imperial Guard, particularly because Ben and Rich are both huge Guard fans. I've come back into the hobby via sort of military modelling style stuff, albeit on Warhammer things. And Matt is looking at doing an Imperial Guard piece for Golden Demon. So it seemed like it made sense to do the episode. Now, we're not going to talk about sort of Rogue Trader era 1980s Imperial Guard or Imperial Army. There's some cool stuff, but we weren't around for that. We're not into that. You know, if we're going to do proper old Hammer episodes, we'll get people on who know what they're talking about with it. So we're going to sort of start it off in the 90s, the sort of second edition Imperial Guard. This is where I started off with my hobby. And you had, you know, you've got Starship Troopers, you've got, you know, you need your classic humans for everything else to, you know, eat, basically. And you had the Imperial Guard, which ended up being these tons of different regiments that were all very clearly based on real world, our world sort of history or tropes, or in this case the Ketchkans, Arnie and Predator. This was back as well when they weren't shy of literally just drawing the actor in the artwork. There's a couple of great Imperial Guard ones for that as well. There's but I'm sure people will know that in the chat. But what you generally had was this army of very, very diverse styles of regiment in it. So you had sort of Desert Dog, the Talon Desert Raiders style next to your Ketchkan squad, next to your Mordian squad, who were real straight up and down, almost in their dress uniform kind of thing. The Cadians were in there, but they weren't the Imperial Guard. They weren't the blueprint for the Imperial Guard. So generally, when you saw armies around at this time, it was you bought your box of shock troops and you painted them like that, red weapons, obviously. And then you'd buy your Talon and you buy your Valhallans and all that. And they'd look great. It'd look colourful. It'd look fun. The Lehman Russ came out and it was just the scariest thing you've ever seen. It was huge. It was this amazing centerpiece. We had the Chimera make an appearance, and we actually had quite a few tanks making an appearance at this stage. Tanks we perhaps had seen in Epic that came into 40k, and some great designs that I wish they'd bring back. I don't think the Griffin currently exists. I don't think it does anyway. I think that's a real shame. That's one of my favourite. But I suspect there's a lot of people in the hobby that when they got into it at a certain age and got into it, White Dwarf was just full of Imperial Guard all the time. It felt like a lot of the people that worked at Games Workshop at the time were all just really into Guard. So there was always great articles on people's personal armies. You have monopose stuff like the Stormtroopers.
They were so cool.
Which is so amazing. Good. Like, it just... and you did have... I want to say you had a monopose plastic Cadian, but maybe I'm just imagining it. But yeah, it was a very fun but not particularly unified looking army. And I think for those people who got into it later down the line, may look a little bit silly in their opinions. But you could bear in mind at this time the majority of the models were metal as well, so conversion.
Oh, has Henry dropped?
Oh, he's converted himself right out of the existence.
Has he not turned his Wi-Fi off and be on Ethernet?
Oh. Well, I think what he was about to say was that because they were mostly metal miniatures, converting them was quite a lot harder than it is today. Even simple weapon and hand swaps was an absolute... It was a bit of a mission, You had to be prepared to start carving. Oh, you're back. You're here.
Had I gone?
Yeah.
You had vanished, mate. We didn't know where you went. Into the warp. Gone.
Oh my goodness. When did you lose me?
Just before you were about to say how hard they were to convert.
Oh, that's all right. I don't think we changed much with that. Oh, great. We're all connected though. So not quite sure what's going on with any of that. And it's not me streaming it anyway, is it, Matt?
You're on Wi-Fi?
No, I'm all plugged in, mate. Anyway, yeah, not that easy to convert. So to see conversions of them, and again, back then you didn't have the internet so much. You either saw them in person at the Games Workshop, at your local gaming club, if it was there, or more likely Games Day, and then in White Dwarf. Yeah. And I think probably the most famous one of this time was the Praetorians that came out. So the Rorke's Drift, or Orcs Drift, mega battle scene, Big Tooth River, yeah. You had the Perry brothers, who are still going, phenomenal sculptors. Sculpted just about every historical model going, I think, Ben, haven't they?
The Perrys have an incredible historical range of some seriously well-renowned. So
right. So and these guys, and generally the pre-1900s stuff was their sort of jam. Yeah. So what they did was they converted the Mordian Iron Guard. They chopped the heads off, and they sculpted, because obviously they were and are great sculptors who sculpted a lot of the range. They sculpted a bunch of the pith helmet, Rorke's style heads, cast them up, and we saw this incredible battle scene sort of using them. So popular that they then went on to cast them up as a big army box that you could buy for, I think, £125 or something like that. But again, there was, as with most armies and things at that time, there was more than a little comic relief, levity, colourfulness, whatever you want to call it. And I don't think any range personified that quite as much as the Guard did. So that's sort of where we start off with them. And then, as with a lot of things in 40k, we hit 3rd edition 40k, and there was a significant vibe change. Artwork was different, basing was different, color schemes were getting. Grimdark was starting to not just live in the mind of John Blanche or some Mark Gibbons pictures. It was really starting to become the style of what 40k was. And with that, you started to get a big leap forward in miniatures production. So they started up where they wanted to give all armies, their core unit was going to be a multi-part plastic kit. Everyone was going to get it. And the Guard changed drastically. And this is where I, like many people, got into beer and bonking and left the hobby for a while. So I will hand it over to Ben to take us through what goes on in the following years.
Yeah, so this was, excuse me, this was a pretty interesting, pretty exciting time, really. So the 3rd edition Guard Codex, you got your main codex, and there was also, they did this one here, fantastic artwork on the front, and you can see the difference in style and intent and atmosphere behind this cover and the previous cover. Everything's quite a lot more gritty, a bit more grim, a bit more horrible, and that certainly was conveyed through, as you say, through the basing, through the paint schemes. There was very few bright red las guns anymore, very, very little Hardy Boys camo. And the plastic Catachans, wherever that slide has gone, they were the plastic Guard box set of choice. So you got yourself, in my time at least, it was 20 plastic Catachans, was about, I think it was 12 or 15 pounds. And suddenly you could do those massive armies because you weren't just sitting there with metal blisters. But it did mean that there was a lot of armies out there with plastic Catachans in. So it was kind of you'd see a lot of Catachans painted up. I know I did, in things like city fight color schemes, desert Catachans, because everyone wanted to use them.
Again, this came right because generally in 2nd edition, our battlefields all looked the same. Yeah. They were green fields with green hills and green trees, and then maybe the odd card sci-fi building, or
you're fighting in Hampshire,
villagers, right? Yeah, right. So there wasn't really this drive to do a particularly themed, as you're saying, a city fight. Like, we didn't know what city fight was. Nothing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And then you got this book, and inside was a raft of different things. But something I know me and Henry have both talked about at length, both here and in conversations, is the Zaragrad board and army by Warwick Kinraid and Ian Pickstock.
Yeah.
Some very, very cool stuff in there, and I think it just showed you how different a themed army could be in 3rd edition. So everything was still using all those metal models that you'd seen, the Cadians, the Valhallans, things from 2nd edition, but they'd been given that slightly more grim twist. So there's a slide of some Valhallans up there. They really, same miniatures as the previous edition, even with a simple rebasing, they just looked so much different.
Yeah, you're right. The Zaragrad was, and you had Ian, as you say, Ian Pickstock working here, both big white dwarfers.
Yeah.
So again, it was you were following their hobby life, ravenously. So this is all you got. Once a month was this magazine. If you didn't have the club, whatever, this was it. And I think, again, because so many of them were so passionately into Guard, that's what we got. And a lot of the things a lot of the memories are of Guard stuff, aren't they? But the Valhallans is a really, it's, I think, more so than most of the other very heavily themed units lent themselves well to different takes on it, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in general, in 3rd edition onward as well, particularly, there was this sort of feeling that there was this freedom to create your own regiments and your own colour schemes, and everything could be a little bit more cohesive in that respect. You didn't have a unit of Mordians, a unit of Valhallans, a unit of Attilan Rough Riders. You might use those miniatures, but you might then have a whole platoon of, say, 25, 35 guys all done up using the same range of miniatures. So you had a Valhallan army, not an Imperial Guard army that happened to have a unit of Valhallans in. So, yeah, I think it felt a bit more cohesive and a little bit more, just a bit more free at that time.
So were you around during that transitional phase, or did you come into it at 3rd?
I came in at 3rd, so I was probably there at the tail end of 2nd, and at the very in 3rd was when I bought the codex, got the blisters, that kind of thing.
Sure. So, because the reason I ask is, like, what was it like? I say it's hard to picture what it must have been like for someone in the hobby to have gone from 2nd through the following ones, because again, it's not that you weren't encouraged to be expressive with your stuff in 2nd ed stuff, but it was very different. They were always painted figures, whereas it feels like, particularly with the Guard, it was taking some background from 40k and creating it, right, making your own regiment up, doing this, that, and it's like, how was it presented to people? You say in the codex, was there a lot of it in the codex, like coming up with colour schemes and stuff?
Yeah, so there was that, at that time you did get the sort of the spread in the coloured section in the book, because it wasn't a full colour codex then. In that coloured section, you did have pictures of the various miniatures painted up as different regiments,
right?
Things totally made up out of whatever, the back of someone in the studio's brain, and they've plucked this colour scheme out of midair. But then there were some things they'd referred to in, like, White Dwarf articles, for example. So, there was a variety of information from a variety of places. So I don't think it was any one source.
But with it being plastic, would you say with the plastics being the catachans, however you say it, the Arnies, how long was it before you saw plastic Cadians then?
So they didn't come out, if memory serves, till the Eye of Terror book, which was a little bit later on. It was after this.
Like years, or a year or so.
It would have been years. No, it would have been a few years. Probably would have been. I'm just trying to think about the passage of time. Probably 3-4 years. I'm sure.
So in that time, then, was it a case of you had, as you said, lots of people painting Catachan armies in different schemes, and still the mixed regiment thing? Did people seem to get on board with it very quickly? I guess is what I'm getting to, because orcs changed a bit, they got a bit grumpier and this, that, and the other, but it was still Bad Moons, Evil Suns, Goths. We'd seen all of that. Space Marine chapters, they've been Space Marine chapters forever. Of a sudden, we're now saying, what do you mean there's regiments other than the Valhallan Ice Warriors or whatever they're? Is that right? And other than the Talon Desert Raiders, what do you mean there were different regiments of these, and different things like that? Like,
I mean, so certainly the places I was gaming in, like the old Woking store, the old Woking Games Workshop, and some of the people in there, very much theirs was sort of themed around ideas and things that they wanted to do. It was their personal armies, and they would use either the metal or plastic miniatures as they saw fit to achieve that. I can't really speak for the wider world, as there wasn't one to us back then. There wasn't the internet, so you just didn't see this stuff unless you went to like a grand tournament, or if you went to like big gaming days or Games Day itself. You just didn't get exposed to this outside of official sort of publications or the people in your gaming group. And I was very fortunate that the guys I was gaming with, there was a few very hardcore Imperial Guard fans who wanted to theme it themselves. So it was I was set on that path, and I ain't going to fall off anytime soon.
Nice. Paul, we're going to talk about Dawn of War Winter Assault shortly. Don't worry, mate. We will get there. But Brian was saying it was, you saw stuff in White Dwarf, and it wasn't until seeing people do different things, and then it added into the codex. Okay, so it was, again, it must have been a really odd time to be to suddenly be able to see what everyone else was up to, not just once a year in White Dwarf when the American Games Day photos came over, and things like that. Someone saying early 2000s, 2002, 2003. Acadian. 4 or 5 years between them. Bloody hell.
Yeah, it was a long time.
I just assumed it was Cadians had come first.
No.
I thought that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. The Metal Cadians were around for a long time. They were. I believe there's still some Metal Cadians painted up as cultists in the Eye of Terror book, painted up in black and red,
right?
In the Eye of Terror Codex. But
yeah, there are. Yeah, it's interesting actually. I wonder what made them switch from it being the Catachans being their sort of primary. Right, these are the plastic Imperial Guard. Buy these as your core. I wonder what made them change from that to it being Cadians. Do you reckon was it they're too much like Rambo? Cadians are more bespoke.
I wonder if it was because before, as I say, so you had the Imperial Guard Codex, you also had the Catachan Codex, like the Death World Codex. So an entirely separate, much, much smaller supplement, specifically with only the Catachans in. Yeah, that one there. So I wonder if it was because at that time then for end of 3rd edition into 4th edition, it amalgamated into one book, which we'll get to. But so I wonder if it was at that point that they went, we kind of need more than just one plastic box now.
Wonder if it had anything to do with the sculpting side of it as well, like whether it was just sculpting the cloth and the fatigues and all that for Cadian, maybe. I don't know. And there's also like, I mean, to me the obvious one is that Cadians are a much more plain canvas, aren't they? And they're Starship Troopers. They're just Starship Troopers, right? Everybody's seen it. Yeah. So whereas Catachans are always going to look like, no matter how you paint them.
It's a very specific aesthetic. I have fond-ish memories of painting, as I say, city fight urban camo Catachans in my bedroom as a teenager. It's not quite good enough, is it?
Not that long ago, when I was changing the studio, I found that they did a Games Day Catachan female model with a grenade launcher.
Oh wow, yeah.
I found her the other day when I was a couple of weeks ago when I was moving things around. But yeah, and that was the best Catachan model for years and years and years, until maybe we got like, what's his name, Harker and who was the sergeant? Metal Arm.
Ironhand
Strachan.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic. I'm sorry, but I interrupted you there, Rich. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just going to ask because I don't even remember that model with the grenade launchers. I think that was before my time.
So it must have come out in 2nd ed. Must have, because I got it at a Games Day.
Yeah.
And it was your classic, sort of pointing to the side.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But it was just really lovely model. And again, because at the time, the only Catachan models you had were massive dudes. Really the only female models we had at the time were probably Escher. And I don't want to say it was Jez who sculpted it, but I know he did all the Escher. And it was, you could put it this way, I painted mine up to go in an Escher gang. And it fit perfectly.
Fair.
But yeah, just, I mean, I don't think we've got slides because I didn't think to ask Matt for them, but actually they clearly have a sort of soft spot for the Catachan, don't they? Because we've seen some of just outrageously good one-offs in the last few years, haven't we?
Yeah, I was going to say they're still doing now. There was the person with the power fist, and then there was a woman with the bionic leg.
Well, there was Dylan, wasn't there, with the power fist? And then
Dylan,
and then
son of a bit.
There was that. Yeah, there was the. Yeah, really
it's a shame they made those limited.
Yeah, real shame. Real shame. Kind of hope they might come back round.
It'd be nice.
But this isn't meant to be about Catachan in particular. But yeah, I'm amazed that we didn't get Cadia till early 2000s, become the dominant.
I mean, I guess if you think about it, it's basically been 20 years though. So they've been around a minute.
Yeah.
When they did come out, they've been around so long now that you can't disassociate them from the Imperial Guard is those plastic Cadians.
Well, yeah, to me they are.
And this slide we're seeing at the minute, of course, is the modern, or the up until recently, the newish take on it, where they brought an additional sprue out with some different heads and weapons and whatnot. But the core of that models that you're seeing there are the 20-year-old kits, right?
Yeah. built a few of those in my life.
Right.
And I don't know the exact regiment, but yeah, there was a lot of Cadians, and of course it was written into the background a lot more, wasn't it? You know, the fact that Cadia stands on the edge of the Eye of Terror. It was always, you know, why are you always burning our village?
Yeah.
It was,
get off my land.
Yeah, they were very much, you know, they became the Guard, didn't they? The blueprint, I guess, of the Guard. So you spoke about Eye of Terror. So what was that all about? This is a codex that isn't an army.
It's a campaign codex. Yes, they did. Games Workshop did a big, all around the world, worldwide campaign, and they did the codex to go with it. And in the background, it's one of Mr. Abaddon's Black Crusades, where he comes pouring out of the warp, gives everyone a bit of a kick in. Ultimately, nothing happens, and he goes home again.
That's what he wants you to think, Ben.
Okay.
He's actually has stolen some precious thing.
It's a really elaborate scrumping, is what he's been up to.
Yeah,
pretty hardcore. But this is an amazing book. So I was deep into Imperial Guard armies. I'd probably done a couple at this point, and this came out, and the plastic Cadians, and just blew my mind. And suddenly, everyone wanted an Imperial Guard army because you could. Because, like you say, it wasn't just plastic Castellans anymore. There was plastic Cadians as well. So everything was fair game.
And so it wasn't just Guard focused. Then you had other bits and bobs in it.
You did, yeah. So you had regular Imperial Guard, you had Traitor Guard, you had Ulthway in there, you had the 13th Company were in there as well.
Okay, this is where all that comes in. Nice. Traitor Guard, was that the first time we've seen them for a long time? Was it a popular theme?
Officially the first
Traitor Guard? Because we had those cultists back in tail end of second, beginning of third. Paul something. I can't remember the sculptor's name now. But did some, yeah. But sort of Traitor Guard now are awesome. But I suppose, yeah, and I guess if it being called Eye of Terror, it makes sense, right, with Cadia and all of that. So, how did this change the landscape then from a painting? So by this time, were you working at GW during this phase?
No, not quite. I was still I was a regular. I was basically part of the furniture in the shop.
But you were well placed to see. You know, obviously it's worldwide. We're getting internet. You know, most people are getting. You know, is what was the change when Eye of Terror came in? And how did you see Guard armies and the hobbying of a Guard army change?
I think just because of the accessibility of having a new plastic infantry kit. You know, we always talk about it on the podcast about if you love the infantry for your army, you're going to love the army. And this was just one of those instances where it was a great kit at the time. It still holds up today, but when it came out, it was mind-blowingly good. The details were great. The poses were good. The way the kit went together. So legs, torso, left and right arm, head, extra webbing, bits of kit to put on them. There was loads of components, and you could just do one simple thing like a head swap, and you had a totally different regiment. And so that was when I certainly first started noticing it was far easier to make those customizable regiments. And the Guard Codex that was out at the same time as this, the sort of 4th edition Codex, for a better word, really encouraged a load of customization. So you had regimental doctrines, which were designed, you could pick and theme your army around a certain play style or similar, the way your regiment of Imperial Guard behaved. So let's say you wanted to go for the drop troop regimental doctrine. You might then go and look somewhere for some heads that you thought looked really cool for drop troopers. And that was a really easy way of making it your own customized regiment, along with the paint schemes, obviously. But converting the miniatures was suddenly so much easier because you had access to a very, like you say, quite not homogenous, but a very simple, basic base kit.
So these armies now are, sorry to interrupt them, I'm genuinely interested in sort of how this goes. So we're seeing more of these individually themed armies, right? Even if they may look very, very similar to each other, everyone's got their own regiment now, and you're making your own thing up. But what is a Guard army looking like at this time? So as I said, back in second, Lehman Russ was the thing. The Lehman Russ Demolisher was terrifying. We had the Sentinel towards the end of it. It was not the best looking thing. You didn't see them a lot. It was all in metal, not the most friendly model to use physically. And you had the odd Chimera maybe might have one mechanized unit type of thing. What was a guard army looking like at this stage, at this era? Was it still just lots of 10-man units? Or?
I mean, you could mix it up quite a bit more with this era codex and book. Not specifically just the Eye of Terror, but the Guard Codex at the time. As I say, because you were going through those regimental doctrines and picking what you wanted, you did see quite a variety of things. You could have, you might see one player might prefer more tanks, so you would have that. Or you might take a mechanized guard army, so you would have infantry squads in chimeras. Something I know both me and Rich were at the same time pretty keen on doing and have done, and I will be doing again. So there was quite a variety. And because, certainly again in the people I was playing with, because you had the options, generally it wasn't a problem. Like, oh, do you know what? I really fancy doing another couple of heavy weapon squads. I'll do that. Oh, do you know what? I really fancy adding the Demolisher. Actually, that's a good shout. I'll do that. So yeah, kind of quite varied, quite a lot of options, a lot of choice. And you weren't really hamstrung by, oh, great, well, I need some mortars. Well, the only ones I've got are Valhallan or, Talon mortars to go with my cast.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, great. Okay. So, yeah.
For me, this era was the era of veterans and white shields. So for me, people kind of went, like for me, I wanted an army that was quite quick and that I didn't want to pay 60 infantry. I took veterans you could take as troops. So I took veteran squads in Chimera transports because they were your compulsory troops. And then you just took those two Lemon Russes, 2 Sentinels, HQ in its own Chimera, and you did it that way. You did a mechanized infantry. But then I also know people that took an army of white shields. So white shields were literally the conscripts. So they had a lesser ballistic skill and they were just loads cheaper, but then people would take 100 of them. So you literally have 100 soldiers all on a board with a couple of like HQs or heavy weapons. So that's what this sort of era reminds me of, those sort of armies. People started, I think they really broadened their horizons and ideas. It was a time when if you had a random ass idea for an army that seemed over the top, like having 100 white shields, this was the time to do it because, like you said, the plastic kits made them so accessible. You could do what you wanted with them.
Yeah.
Nice. Matt just asked in the chat, did they have an online component where you could report your results from this global thing? Nice.
Yeah.
This was the first campaign. This is when I came in to the hobby, and the first thing they talked to me about when I was in the shop was of the Eye of Terror campaign, and they showed me the codex because I said, "Oh, what's going on?" Because there was loads of people in there, and they said, "Oh, well, we're doing this campaign," and yeah, it was the first time that they asked. It was literally the good guys versus the bad guys in all the stores. You then emailed in the results, and the results dictated what happened in the storyline for that.
Nice.
This era within the fluff,
nice.
Which I thought was super cool.
Matt, think of the spreadsheets.
Didn't have Google Docs back then.
Let's not go down the conspiracy line that I think the chat is already, and I probably agree with you on it, but. Steel Legion, was that this time?
Steel Legion was in the Armageddon Codex, which was a little bit before this.
Okay.
A little bit before.
Steel Legion, I don't think we got a slide actually. Were they a conversion or a resculpt on the Mordian kit, or were they brand new?
No, they were totally new. They were totally independent sculpts. They were pretty special. Those they were. Hold a dear place in my heart.
I was going to say there are a lot of people who crave recollecting Steel Legion, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's the same for any of those old metal regiments. If you've got them and you want to make a few quid, eBay is your friend. People are desperate to get their hands on them still. They really are.
I did. I've got a squad of the Frost dudes. I can't remember what they're called.
Valhallans.
Yeah,
Valhallans. Yeah, I've got a squad of Valhallans, and there's a part of me that just keeps thinking of a kill team, just using the Krieg rules and.
Well, so. We may as well have a chat briefly now about Kill Team. The fact that Kill Team has seen Krieg and Kazakin. It feels like this may be where we get a new Kazakan squad. I don't 100%. Necessarily think we'll get all of them.
I do.
But the fact that we saw the Rough Riders coming back in the main book,
that was a surprise.
I certainly didn't think. I thought you'd get Rough Riders, but I thought they were going to be lads on bikes.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put 50p on that.
Yeah, but let's come back to that a little bit later. So this period, this sort of late 90s, early noughties. How many armies you down by now? You've done a few Guard now, right?
So this is the period where I started doing a monstrous Guard army. I ended up with nearly 10,000 points over the next sort of about 7-8 years. Fully painted army, which is laughable because I haven't got any of it left now. But
it really, really attracts like that type of mindset of person, doesn't it? Like if I think to all the photos I've seen of the massive collections, more of them are Guard than anything else, right?
Orcs and Guard, always.
Yeah.
It's because in the Codex there's a bit in it, if I remember rightly, it's in the future there is only war, and the Imperial Guard are the anvil which that war is forged, or something like that. Because they are there's like a bit on it whereas they fight on a million battlefields. Their number is immeasurable.
Loads.
It is. There are fucking loads of us. Come at me, bro.
Yeah.
Nice. What do we go into next, Matt, on the slides? I'm just trying to remember. Imperial armor. So, Ben, if you're happy to move on.
Oh yeah, crack on.
And I think the Steel Legion's probably a good one to segue this in with. So we're starting to see more and more serious real world takes in the Imperial Guard, right? We've gone from an army of Rambo and Commando and basically any of Stallone and Schwarzenegger's work. We now got we've gone through the sort of the Rorke's Drift. We're now getting into this sort of generic Starship Troopers, and then Steel Legion brought quite a lot of darkness really to it.
Yeah,
let's be honest. And at this point, Forge World was finding its feet, shall we say? It was no longer just two models, and if we talk about White Dwarf and stuff being full of treadheads and Imperial Guard fanatics, the guys over at Forge World, I mean, they literally were that, right? Their whole thing was historicals, tanks, that type of thing. And we start to see the Imperial Armor series, which brings a very new, very grim look at 40k and the Guard. And I got back in during this era, but Rich, you particularly love this. So yeah, talk us through it a bit. What's the whole deal? What is Imperial Armor? What was it all about?
So I got into this because I got into the hobby through historical model making. So I started making jets and tanks and stuff when I was little, and then then I got into Warhammer, and then as I was getting into it, the Imperial Armor books came out. So the Imperial Armor books were released by Forge World, and they took the kind of traditional plastic kits that anyone could paint and collect, and they painted them in a way that aligned with historical painting techniques. So it was real world techniques on sci-fi models, and it basically blew everyone's mind. The other really important bit about the Imperial Armor books was the level of detail that you got in the step-by-step descriptions of how they created the dioramas that they did, all the painting techniques that they did. They were also really interesting because for the first time, it was a book that suggested using non-Games Workshop materials. So
this specifically is the masterclass book you're talking about now, yeah?
Yeah. So they started doing, suggested using oils. They suggested using all these different historical techniques that a lot of people who hadn't come into the hobby through the route that I did through historical had no idea that they were a thing. And Phil, whose last name I can never say properly,
Stachinskas?
Yeah, that is actually a legitimate historical painter in his own right. So he was one of the first historical painters to start painting 3D damage on his historical models. And he's actually influenced an entire generation of historical miniature painters now that use modulation, that use damage that's painted on. They don't just use chipping fluid, all this different sort of stuff. And he was one of the main people that created these step-by-steps in the masterclass books.
So, and that real world whole thing, that then was coupled with the fact that they did these campaign books where we saw regiments like the Elysian Drop Troopers, so sort of hard sci-fi, very different style of sculpting, smaller hands, not so exaggerated, and Krieg, obviously Death Corps of Krieg, and a lot of new tanks, whether they were full resin kits or whether they were the billion add-ons that I miss so much and regret not buying. Right.
Same.
Sadness.
Yeah, Siege of Rax, that was the one.
It was interesting time because it was almost like, here's 40k. This is how that works. It's not quite what it was when Imperial Guard started. It's not as comical as that, but there is, within the painting style of the miniatures, there is that aspect to it. Whereas the Imperial Armor books is, this is the alternate version of it, much more grimdark, much more historical. And rather than it just be that paint style, they actually released miniatures that tied in with that aesthetic. So things like the Macarius, the Malcador, the upgrade sets that you had for these vehicles, they lended to that type of painting. So it was kind of strange because almost for the first time, it was like a Games Workshop endorsed variation on their original IP. So it's like, cool, you can paint it super happy chappy, green edges, bases, all that kind of stuff. I know that was a bit before this, but 3-edge highlights on everybody's
edge highlighting is one that stands out, isn't it? As in is in the heavy metal, but is not in the.
It's not. No. It's about, even in the words that they use, it's around the atmosphere and how dark it is and gritty, and it was the first time I think that we'd seen an official Games Workshop publication endorse this kind of painting style, and it blew everyone's mind because a lot of it was their first interaction with that kind of painting as well, and it was like, holy shit, this is the way that you can paint these miniatures.
And I think it was also a bit more. Sorry, go on, dude.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it was one of the first times as well I remember seeing very much more kind of joined up between the miniatures, the background text and lore, and the Black Library novels, and how gritty and grim they were, and some of the artwork as well. It was very much a complete package of, this is actually how 40k could be if you want to go that way. With being very much more grim, battered, dark, a little bit sketchy, a little bit scary.
And for me, it was the perfect combo because I was still preferred and closer to that style of painting, the historical, using oils, using different filters, all that kind of stuff. But I loved the sci-fi fantasy element. I couldn't get into the historical miniatures as much, and this was like the perfect amalgamation of the two. It's sci-fi, but it's painted realistically. And that, for me, that's why that was the defining moment for me for Guard, when I really got into them and collected my mechanized infantry army, which I greatly miss.
Do it again. Buy another one.
Just do it again. I think Imperial Armor, I mean, we've spoken about it at length, actually, occasionally on other episodes. I think possibly because it's had such a big impact on all of us personally as well, the Masterclass books. And Phil Sajinskas and Mark Bedford, that sort of they're the way they promoted, as you say, Rich, how you can 40k this way too, if you like. And again, the Guard are the obvious way in, aren't they?
But, and I love the fact that that's where it started. But, and I know it's not about the Guard, but in the future they got Space Marines, and then they went into Tau and all these different things as well with the different armor books.
But it was the Guard that allowed them to, wasn't it? I guess absolutely. Because again, it gives you a grounding in. Okay, well, this is your normal people.
These are your chads with flashlights and shit power armor, shit armor stood there. That was always the appeal of the Imperial Guard. It's like, in a world where you've got 7.5 foot tall super soldiers, demons, space elves that can bend time. There's just a fucking bloke with a rifle just stood in a line, being like, "Yeah, this is going to be fine.
This is going to be fine." Yeah, fixed bayonets.
Yeah, fucking too right.
That is exactly the appeal. Or Dave, the guardsman's about to get his head kicked in by a Tyrannid, and let's see what happens.
So I think you've mentioned. I think it was Ben mentioned there. So at this time, the painting, the miniatures, and the story all really. There was more of it anyway. We were exposed to more of it anyway, but perhaps it was more closely linked to each other. And you mentioned things like Black Library, which again at this time was now really exploding. You had series of books now that were well regarded, many of them based on God, because again a lot of the novels, it's told from the viewpoint of the general sort of human, whether that's in the Imperial Guard, whether that's an Inquisitor, whether that, that type of thing. So we start to see these series coming out. We start to see things like Caiaphas Cain, so that's slightly more common, 40k Flashman, which is great fun. All that, you had Schaefer's Last Chances, you have Gaunt's Ghosts, which I think is, if we're going to lean slightly more into it getting more serious, I think Gaunt's Ghosts is where that was, and that for me is very close to when I got back into the hobby, was via Eisenhorn and then Gaunt's Ghost books. So have we got some Black Library stuff next, Matt? If you guys are happy to move on from Imperial, is there anything you want to cover more? So as much as this strange Skunk Works type division of Games Workshop is promoting a different take on Guard, you have the Black Library creating. I mean, you had Inferno magazine for a while. It was like a graphic novel type monthly thing, Warhammer Monthly, all these sorts of things. So we're getting exposed to is lots of different takes on the Guard, and as you're saying, Rich, you're being encouraged to explore. It's come and play in our universe, but it can be in your style. It can be on your terms. And please go on, mate.
I was just going to say that, just to touch on Inferno, was a really good way of exploring those different versions of the world, because the different artists had their own view of it, and it was a lot quicker and easier to draw something and go, this is my representation of it. It didn't mean that you had to design a model, cast that model, build that model, pay someone to paint it, then release it. It was a much more of like a snapshot into these different universes from their different perspective, and it kind of, like you said, it gave you the okay to do that yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We will talk about Imperial Armor a lot more in other episodes, so please don't worry if you think, I've only spent 5-10 minutes on it. Then there's going to be lots of chat about it, probably too much, but I don't care, because they're the best things ever.
No such thing.
So, but yeah, we're talking about that slightly more serious take, and you had these Gaunt's Ghosts stories, this new regiment, this commissar colonel, this, I mean, must be near 20 novels now of this series. So it's been with a lot of us for the whole time we've been in the hobby, right? Gaunt's Ghosts has been. And the really nice thing, as you guys were saying about, the art informing the miniatures, informing the stories, and cyclical, this, that, and the other. Over the years, they've brought out miniatures of Black Library stuff. Now, often that was done as like a limited release thing, right? We got a big Eisenhorn. We got the Last Chances, didn't we? In a metal set.
Yeah.
We did.
And fairly recently, I think last year perhaps, we got the second take on a Gaunt's Ghosts set. And the lovely thing here is you can still buy it, and it's in plastic, and they're outrageously cool.
They're very.
And my heart is breaking just looking at some of these characters. There's a few times it's okay to cry. One of them is at the end of that book. But it's so, I just think it's so cool that we're, in the early days, the models came from a snippet. They came from a tiny little text box. The Horus Heresy, came from a 100-word bit of color text in one of the books. And now we've got, these 1,000-page omnibuses based on giving you these ideas, and now they're giving you models of them as well. So it's not just saying that you can't go and be inspired and use your imagination and do your own thing, but equally there's that little something. I guess it's that they're giving you yet another way to hobby in that universe.
Yeah.
So you've got fun Starship Troopers, Cadia. You've got super grimdark Krieg, Elysians, whatever. Or maybe you are much more about, I want to represent Gaunt. I don't want the Guard army, but I would love to have Gaunt's Ghosts into that. And now, you can.
You can.
I need these. They've been on my list for a long time to pick up.
Is there only the 6 of them?
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't do the previous set had more characters in.
Yeah, there was like an extra metal blister.
You had the dot in it, didn't you, and things like that. So yeah. But any particular standout Black Libraries for you guys, or anyone in the chat? Was that, as I say, that's kind of what got me back in the hobby, was Black Library.
Yeah, it did me as well. In that I was painting historical models, had no idea that Games Workshop was even a thing because I'd never done it when I was little. I'd always seen the shop and been intrigued, but never took it any further than that. And I got into it because I was really into graphic novels and drawing at the time, as well as doing the odd historical model. And I got a couple of the Inferno comics and a Inquisitor graphic novel and the Redeemer graphic novel out of the library. So I was just really into it. And in that section, in the graphic novel section, they had a couple of the Black Library bits, and I got them out, and I was like, "What the is this stuff? It is literally insane.
Yeah,
what's going on?" And got into it that way. So really got into that side of things, the books and the graphic novels and the comics and stuff, before I actually got into the hobby itself, and kind of stepped from that world. And one day went, "Oh, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go into Games Workshop and have a chat with them." And I literally went in on the launch day of the 13th Crusade event and walked out with a box of plastic Catachans. Cadian, sorry. Yeah.
They got you good.
That's how you do it.
Did.
I mean, for me, the Necropolis, the Gaunt's Ghost Necropolis novel.
Yeah.
I think I was going to say it's the third in the series. When they go and have the serious urban warfare city fight, it is bonkers.
Yeah.
It put a whole new spin on 40k for me. When I read it, it transformed what I was seeing in the rule books and the codexes, and kind of imagining in your head. And I was reading it, I'm just like, this is mental. I need to get in on this. And that's when I started changing and twisting my armies a little bit and slightly more. It was so inspirational, I couldn't not do it. And just bonkers.
Yeah, it's pretty special. Pretty special book, that one. I think a lot of people agree.
If you had to recommend a book, because pretty much I've read the first 6 Horus Heresy books. That's it. But
mate,
what Guard book, if you wanted to dive into
it? Yeah, pick up the first Gaunt's Ghost Omnibus. I think it gives you 3.5 stories, I think. And much like Heresy, and much like I think Eisenhorn, against all Dan Abnett, a lot of it's Dan Abnett, is I have plenty of friends who do not play this game, but who thoroughly enjoyed those books. As good stories.
Yeah, my old man's a massive sci-fi and fantasy book reader, and he loves the Black Library stuff. He couldn't give a toss about the miniatures, but he loves the novels.
But Gaunt's Ghost is a slippy slope. There's a lot. So if you want, but a little bit like you're saying, you've read the first 6 Heresy books. Actually, you can just stop then, and actually, it's a nice little self-contained arc if you want it to be. But they're very good. I've not, to be fair, read many of the newer, not Gaunt Guard stuff. There was that Severina Rain book that came out along with that awesome model, my favourite Commissar model. But there's a lot of Guard. It often seems to be where they bring new authors in via.
Yeah. I recently read or reread Down Among the Dead Men, which is a short story about the Krieg, because I was painting a Krieg Kiltum at the time, and it just tickled my pickle a little bit. I read that and I was like, oh god, these lot are fucking brutal.
Grim. Yeah. That's a really nice. I hadn't thought of that. You stick on the audio book while you're actually painting the
absolutely
like that. But even this slide match show now, I mean, that's 3 very different takes on Guard, even in that. And of course, a good example of the fact that now we have much more representation in the Guard miniatures, artwork, stories, and so on as well. And we haven't, we've seen that particularly in the newest release, which again just adds a huge variety of hobby, and options, which is always a good thing. So, do we have Dawn of War next, Matt?
We do.
We couldn't really mention things associated with Guard armies and that aren't necessarily miniatures, and not have the incredible Dawn of War series, Winter Assault. Had the army creation, army painter type thing in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I created. I had my guard army in real life and copied the color scheme.
There you go.
I was playing on Dawn of War. I saw my guard running around on my computer. It fucking blew my mind.
There was a mod for Dawn of War a while back, and you could basically just spam build as much as you wanted. There was no unit caps or anything like that. And I basically just wanted as many basilisks as I could field. Like my computer, was the old whatever it was. I had to buy a new graphics card to play the game.
Good lad. Oh wow, good lad.
And you just set the AI to extreme. And you just sit at the back of the map and just bombard whatever. You're not playing the game to win. You just want to see just shells rain.
Amazing.
It's perfection. A couple of months back, I was quite unwell. I needed to play some video games, couldn't really do anything else. I had all this stuff I'd downloaded from Steam. I was like, what am I going to tuck into? This is this. I've got this decent computer for running it all on. Now I'll download Dawn of War and replay that because it's just that good. And the Harakoni Warhawks is where I first came across that. I remember creating them in this, but it was a terrifying time a couple of months ago because I had that I was playing. I had Gaunt's Ghosts on the go, and we got the Cadia Stands box.
It's just the universe.
It was that I'm in danger. Thing.
Giggling while sent the signal.
Right. So thankfully, uninstalled that, gave Ben the guard, and chaos. It's all right.
I'll get you.
But it's if you've not played this game, if you're into video games, if you're into the Imperial Guard, just go and do it. It's a right giggle. And it sort of felt like it was really cool seeing them like this in the video game, right? We've talked about video games before, haven't we? And their influence and stuff, but it really did feel like, I would be amazed if people came out of playing Dawn of War and didn't at least think about doing a guard army.
I think it was really nice for them to be front and center. It's very easy to make Space Marines the front and center poster boys of 40k, and it was great to see the Guard get a bit of love in that space. I think, especially for people that have been Guard players up to this point, it's very, I don't know. There's something about the Guard. They just seem a bit downtrodden because they're just always in the shit, and they're never the poster boys, never get enough love.
Yeah.
So it was great to see them trying to get it with this.
Such a good game.
And the army paint was just a brilliant.
I just spent more time doing this than I did actually playing the game. Just creating army color schemes. Going, that's cool.
But hopefully, we see Dark Tide, of course, has just come out, hasn't it? That's caused a lot of excitement, and again, sort of not the Imperial Guard directly, but it's still, hopefully, I'm looking forward to seeing some people's takes on stuff inspired from that. I see Andy in the chat there, rediscovering Dawn of War ruined my life.
He does nothing but Dawn of War at the moment. Why do you think he's painting an Elder army?
Yeah, right. It's got him painting an army though, which is grand.
And
assuming he's not watched the last episode, so it's good times. So bringing it right back to where we are now. Guard has always been at the forefront of a lot of 40k, whether it's the lore, the miniatures, the game, whatever. But there has been a little while now since we've had new models for them. It's been a very long while for certain models within the range. So we were all, as we said on a previous episode that's coming out soon, we'd seen the revamp of the Eldar, we'd seen the revamp of the Orcs. We were getting very, very excited. What's the revamp of the Guard going to be like? And I don't think it's disappointed. Even picking the slide Matt has here, which is probably the most nonsense one in the book, and an incredible front cover piece. Guards come a long way, right?
It has. It was a surprise as well when they brought out that update sprue for the old kit. And it was, and we saw, oh my god, new guard, and me and Ben had fucking heart attacks, and then we saw its new heads and new weapons, and my heart just was like, what? I was like, in my lifetime, I'm never going to see new Cadians.
I was so sad.
So sad.
But we got them. So we got the Cadia Stands box, which contained the new guard. Yeah, they're perfect. They're brilliant. They're phenomenal.
What a time to be alive.
They're just great. I'm so happy for fans, old fans, new fans.
So
amazing. But more so than I think the fact that they're just lovely updates, which again is why we like the Eldar release and why we like the Auras, is because a lot of it was just simply an improvement, on an existing thing. For me, I think the most exciting part about the book, other than the phenomenal front cover artwork, which, artwork and miniatures don't always match, but incredible artwork on the front. You open the book up and you look through it, and all of a sudden, it's 25 years ago, and we're looking at armies that now contain Attilan Rough Riders, Cadian Shock Troopers. Admittedly, Krieg wasn't back then, but we're getting Krieg. Krieg Death Corps veteran unit. So are we going to start seeing a return to Guard armies that are much more mixed regiment? And
I hope so.
Will they look as disparate as they did? Because I've been chatting to Ben recently. I've been digging out a load of old Chaos models, and I've painted them in different schemes over a year or so. But because I've painted them in the same way, similar way, this, that, and the other, they look fairly harmonious together. I wonder if we'll see that now, because these rough. Now I love these. I know a lot of people do not. I think Marmite kits are great, particularly when they're just the one special type of unit, right? Because you don't like them. Okay, fuck it, convert your own. Doesn't make a difference. If you hated the Guardsman, that may be a problematic, right?
Yeah.
But I can see these sat next to a Guard models. I mean, particularly if you just unify the color scheme. But even if you don't, I'm not so sure it looks too disparate. How do you feel about that? Because you two, of course, came in where Guard were more looks this way.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I think, having looked through the book, absolutely you can do what I will now term an old school army with a bit of everything in there. Like you say, maybe a unified color scheme, maybe not, as long as the few key elements that do match, and like the basing will tie everything together. I think you'll have an amazing army. But I also think the book's got a lot more scope now. So I have a Krieg army, which I did using all the plastics, which I went and spent an extortionate amount of cash on eBay like 2 weeks after they came out.
Less than you'd have spent on the resin equivalents, mind.
Not Very much true. Less, let's be fair. So I've got a big Krieg army. So I can now theme that and use the Krieg keyword as part of the rules, and great, I can have a Krieg army. But I've also got all the new stuff from the new Cadia Stands box, and both are entirely valid and viable armies. They both come from the same book, or I could mix the two together, and the vehicles, all the armor is going to be painted the same across the two armies. So actually, they could be one army together. I think it's it's a return to that 4th edition style of army where you can do whatever the hell you want.
I like that, because it did feel for a long time like it was Cadia or get the fuck out.
It was, yeah. And I didn't play 40k very much 6th, 7th, or 8th edition, because the things I wanted to do would have been a Guard army, and I couldn't be bothered to paint some Cadians. That would have been a choice, like I could have painted them a different way and had a themed army a different way, but it didn't feel viable at the time. So with this new book, amazing. I can't not do all the armies I want to do now. Bastards.
For me, I'm really intrigued to see, because I haven't seen anyone do it yet, is to take the new plastic kits and throw the Imperial armor sort of style paint jobs on them and turn them into a really new, modern, grim, dark version of Imperial Guard. If I was to lean into Imperial Guard and look at them and doing them as a small force, that's the way that I would look at doing it, is historically paint all these models, including tanks, or make my own, or really kind of throw a bit of time and energy. I can't wait to get hold of new Centaur, because I want to make a new walking tank thing out of a can. like I did last time, and see
cool.
what that looks like.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh man. Oh fuck. All right.
I can hear the result.
Before we close it out with the speaking of Marmite kits, this has obviously been a very quick skim through, really, of the potted history of our experience with hobbying with the Guard, and there's lots we've missed out. What's been probably your favourite kit that we haven't spoken about in that time? I loved the Valkyrie. I thought it was so cool seeing a plane. And it's just this drop. I've seen fantastic conversions where they give it a helicopter top bit, whatever that's called, rotor blades. Yeah, really, really cool. Any standout to you guys that we haven't mentioned? I mean, the Macarius, which we'll probably chat about in a second.
Don't start, man. Not yet.
It's still too soon.
I've dropped that on your suit quite quickly.
The humble plastic sentinel. For me,
how do you feel about its glow up?
I like it.
The phrase.
I do like it. I still think the old one holds a place in my heart because it was my favourite kit within Guard. As I've always had a bit of an issue with the Lemon Rust as a kit, which is a link that we'll go on to in a minute when we talk about that fucking monstrosity. But the humble sentinel was an incredible kit back in the day. You could do anything with it. You could paint it historically. You could paint it to a really high level. And I'm actually really pleased with the update. I think it's a really nice homage to the old one, but bringing it into the new era of kits. And I really am looking forward to painting it. I think it's just so Imperial Guard, and yeah, that's for me my favorite.
Nice. Ben, quick, 2 seconds, go.
Chimera, it's been around forever. It had a glow up a while back, but it's still great. I've got so many fond memories.
Well, good, you're about to paint a load more.
I need at least 4 now, I think.
Every single Imperial armor tank that exists is incredible. So,
I thought you were going to pick the field guns.
Yeah, that was.
Nice.
I do love them. I need more.
Speaking of things you love, let's take a quick look. Let's close it out looking at the centerpiece of the newest release, the Rogel Dawn tank.
I'll happily go first.
There is again a Marmite reaction with the show tonight. 2 of us like this kit a lot and are looking forward to painting it, and 2 of us don't. So, Rich, go on. You might as well. What's wrong? Come on.
Okay, so you take anything from the Imperial armor books and look how that is a sci-fi take on something that you could see in the real world, admittedly a bit over the top, and it's got its place. It's dark. It's realistic. It's beautiful. This fucking thing looks like my 2-year-old designed it and made like a Chuck E. Cheese tank and stuck 9,000 gun barrels on it and gone, here you go. The really annoying thing is there are actually elements of this that look like quite like they've thought about it. Like on the tracks, they've got like the rubber pad like you would have on regular tracks. Why? Why does it have to become a
Have you now? For full disclosure, I like it. Have you seen the different pictures of it in the book? So you are aware that the photo we're looking at now, I think, is basically the everything possible stuck on it version.
Yes. Yeah. The other ones are better. There's one that's like kind of a light green color, which I do think is a bit better.
Matt, but you're excited about this, right? You're going to be painting this for display for a competition, right? So
yeah.
Basically, why on earth does this monstrosity, as Rich calls it, this toy, what's appealing to you about it to suddenly go, oh man, I've got to do this?
I just like there'll be massive like bits chopped off of it, but I think
you'll have to chop them, mate.
No,
I really don't.
Yeah, whatever the kit's like, but like you get rid of the sponsons, you get rid of the Gatling cannon, you get rid of the little weird guns at the front,
melters.
Yeah. You put one of those in where the Gatling cannon is. It looks like 50 caliber. You take off some of the weird light things that you wouldn't see on a tank. And like what you were saying in the previous bit, Rich, I want to take the Imperial Armor Masterclasses and apply that to this. I want it. It's going to be for was going to be for this GD, but it's not going to come out soon enough. But I want it to sit in Monty and not look 40k.
Right.
I genuinely think you can do that with this kit without any more than just choosing how you assemble it.
Yeah.
I really, really do. I think 6 months' time, whenever we actually get it, people have had a chance to do some work on it. I think we're going to see some stunners of this tank. And I know fuck all about proper real world military history. I really don't. But when we saw the pictures of this, my various chats just blew up. And honestly, I'd flick between them. Someone would be like Rich, absolutely having a meltdown. It was the worst thing ever. Another one would be someone going listing off all these various tanks that I'd never heard of. And they're like, oh, it's got this bit off a Charbis and this bit off a German name and this bit off a something else. You know, it's got brilliant. Look how they've designed it, you know.
It's got like bits of the Matilda thing as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I saw this described as a Rorschach test for tread heads, which made me laugh a lot.
So explain.
So there's a bit of everything in there, isn't there? You see what you want to see in this vehicle. Like you say, everyone that's a bit of a tank head can go, that's that bit, that's this bit, that's that one. But it is still a very, very sci-fi tank. I'm really suffering with this one because I want to love it, but I can't. Not as it's currently sitting. So don't get me wrong, I'm going to end up painting one, but I think it's going to need to be assembled. No, like you say, no sponsons, no strange nipple guns. Use the heavy stubbers instead of things like melters, that kind of thing. And actually, what I'm thinking is I might pop one of those Forge World Krieg turrets on the top instead of the turret it currently has. So
taking off the subjective hat, because again, we could probably done an entire show on this. Objective, if it is as easily customizable as we think it is, given the various photos we've seen of it, none of us have seen the kit in the flesh. I think it could be hugely significant in the sense of, like Matt is saying, getting people painting 40k stuff in a military modeling style. We don't really get Imperial armor books anymore. We haven't for a long time now. We had some Heresy for a while. Some of the Heresy black books had similar stylings to the Imperial, but that changed, as it inevitably does over 20 years, 10 years, 20 years, or whatever we spoke about before. But, you know, expensive resin kits, which, let's be honest, most of the time were a fucking nightmare to build and hobby. And again, this is how I got back in, was these kits, was Macarius, was Malcadors, was Titans, was all of this. You know, my lungs are filled up to about here probably with resin dust, right? To be able to go and get what I'm assuming is going to be less than £100. Again, I don't know, but it's smaller than a Baneblade, so you've got to assume it's sitting less than a Baneblade. A canvas that you're going to be able to go and try all these techniques on. That's plastic, that you can build quickly, that you can, you know, problem solve with easier. I think it's going to be massive.
I think it is in that respect of, however much I disagree with the aesthetic of it, it's a real world tank that's on tracks. You know, if you look at Space Marines, everything floats now, as opposed to what it did before. And this is still, I'm glad there are elements that I like about it, in that I'm glad it is still just a tank that has tracks, and that they're staying true to that aesthetic. It doesn't float like everything else floats these days. So I agree with that. And I do think that, personally, just because it's that's what appeals to me, I do think that side of the hobby is missing a bit at the moment. Like you said, Heresy used to be a bit like that, but then it became more mainstream, so the Heavy Metal team did their take on it, which is not a bad take. I think it evolution, right? It's an evolution, but because that era of fantasy or sci-fi fantasy based vehicles painted historically is literally like the key to my heart. I do hope that some people do. It won't be me doing it, for damn sure, but I do hope that some people take a run at this and do some really, really nice things with it.
Good. Well, yeah, that's a really positive. Let's leave it on that.
Yeah,
it's really well done, mate.
Thank you very much.
Good job, man.
Butthole can unpucker now after the threats that you were giving before we started recording. That's our sort of whistle stop tour of the Guard. I I'm so excited about what we're going to see. Again, like Rich, like Ben, like Matt, we love that military modelling style. I think we're going to see it loads with these new kits. I think it suits these new kits more. I think the older generation of plastics were just a little bit too chonky and toy-like, given their age. And therefore, the Forge World stuff generally was way better or more to our tastes and took that paint style better. I think now we're going to meet in the middle somewhere, and I think it's just very, very exciting.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've missed loads. Sorry, Rich, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say on that as well, if you look at like a really high-level historical 135 like Tacom or Tamiya kit, that's kind of what like the new plastic vehicles look like to me. They're getting to that level now because the historical stuff was always like pinnacle of plastic kit creation. These new kits are kind of getting to that level, and if you want to paint something historical, the better the kit you can get hold of to paint it that way, the better the model will look. So I think, I completely agree with you.
And we definitely will do those historical episodes we've been speaking about. We've got a few people lined up that we're going to get on to chat about it. Right. That'll do. We could do tons on the Guard, and I'm sure we'll revisit them soon enough. Let's close out the show as usual, taking a look at what hashtag Paint Cultists have been up to. So on Instagram, bang that hashtag in, give it a follow. You've got about 18,000 images on there now. It's a really great way to expose yourself to different styles of painting, different types of models, just accounts that you won't come across due to the algorithms and all of that sort of thing. And all I do is pick a handful of them just to have a quick chat about each time we do it. It gets harder and harder. It's not necessarily the best painted or the whatever. It's just the funnest ones, the ones that jump out to me. And I always forget about why I picked them. So, first. I didn't choose many for this one because I thought the Guard thing may go on a while. This just getting me warmed up, this beauty. Me and Ben are about to embark, along with a load of other people on the Discord, a January, February Path to Glory 2,000 point Slaves to Darkness, or a few people just doing generic Khorne armies or whatever on there. Age of Sigmar project, and this is one of the coolest models that they've had in the last few years, and it's great to see it painted up in some different colours too.
Yeah, really like that. Really cool.
I love the way that he's done the base, where he's just got tufts of grass sat directly onto that.
On the plate, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
So good.
It's very good.
That type of thing. I love it when it bleeds out into the plinth.
Yeah,
gets me well moist. Just lovely. I reckon this person, if they haven't already, needs to get hold of the Demon kit, a Demon Prince kit, and have some fun with that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see it painted in a similar style to this. And it looks like, don't think it is, but it looks like it might be a cockatrice's head or something on the shield as well.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
So yeah, super cool.
Very good work. Nice.
What's next, Matt? Oh,
that's very cool.
Really cool, eh? I do remember why I picked this one, not just because it looks cool, but this person was like, I got this as my Warhammer Plus mini, but he's converted it up to be his 40k, because he doesn't do Age of Sigmar, and he was like, otherwise he's just going to sit in the box on the shelf and get painted. What a great idea, just tweak it a bit and there you go, there's your thing. And cool as fuck to see orcs done in a white armour.
I was just going to say that, you don't see that very often, so it's a very good take on it.
And I really like the conversion work they've done as well. It looks pretty close to, that must be how you buy the model.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It is very, yeah.
Really, really nicely done, and a great model. Like
blood is great.
And the blood's really cool, right? It's a bit grim, actually.
Chonky. Too good.
Yeah, it's a bit too chonky, in it, that one. Yeah. Chewy,
textured.
Nice. And faded checks will always win. It's hard to get more Warhammer than that. I did faded leopard print on an Escher bike recently, and it's probably the favourite thing I've done in this last year on a model I painted. And it's on a model I probably will never use, but you never know. Right, what's up next? Oh yeah. So again,
what is that? Is
it's Bigfoot. And it's some game again. Check the account out. I've fucking forgotten it now, but it's a game, and I'm wondering if maybe it's like different cryptids fighting or something like that. Because like he was mentioning all these other weird things that it was going to go up against. I was like, that's a bizarre sounding game. But yeah, just a cool page. And again, I'd never see this type of miniature like in my endless Space Marine feed. But yeah, and again, I don't know, but it looks like the type of mini that you may get on these, 3D printing Patrons. And again, it's just this type of thing I think really suits that. Like, I need a Yeti model or I need a Bigfoot model. What is there? And there's just this, cool version and very nicely painted.
Yeah.
Trez bomb.
I like painting fur. I need to paint something fur. What's furry in the Slaves Army? Anything super furry?
All the cloaks, really?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Warhounds?
No, you're having them. I don't want
them. That I am.
If it's not covered in armor, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. On the Warriors, they have some nice different furs on them and stuff, don't they? So yeah, looking forward to painting that. Right, couple more, I think, Matt.
Ooh, oh wow!
How cool is this?
Nice.
That's mental.
So it's a big child mini,
right?
But I think what I just love is it looks underwater. I mean, obviously it looks underwater because there's fish like in
floating
behind it. But you know what I mean? Like, and it is the blue, right? Everything's lit with blue and stuff, and it's beautifully photographed and all of that. But just how cool! I've not seen a model like that that's really painted to be underwater, and there's no resin effects on there, right? Because the whole scene is under the water.
That's a nice touch. It's nice actually when you see something like this now. With the amount of miniatures creators there are out there, it's nice to see something that you've not seen before. Because it is getting more rare.
Absolutely. Which is, it's a conversation to have another time anyway, isn't it? But I think it does. We sort of talked about it with Mark Masklands' painting. There's a lot of fantastic painters out there. What makes you stand out? And I think you're right. It's there's definitely the cream will still rise to the top, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
With this, and this is just a very cool idea, beautifully executed, and then a lovely paint job.
Love it.
So yeah, is that it, Matt, or have I got one more?
One more.
Ooh, what have I got? Oh yeah. So obviously there's this thing with people posting their mug up and a bunch of miniatures. But this one, Liam, lovely chat. We met him at the Heresy launch for Heresy 2nd edition. But he's posted up some of the stuff he's painted from the last year. He's a prolific painter, really, really fantastic. I'd really recommend following him.
Salamander's Army out there.
And yeah, and if you ever see him, have a chat with him, because he's a very knowledgeable, erudite chap when it comes to painting. And yes, just tons of cool stuff. And I do need to paint that big bloodthirster. I've been thinking that this week. I was like, can I generic demonify him?
Probably.
Yeah.
I like Liam's stuff. It links back to kind of what I said about my pick for this week. Is someone who puts in a lot of effort, like his Salamander Army, where he's sculpted all the greaves for all of them to have flames on all his Primaris Marines and shit like that. Like, fair play.
Yeah.
Got a lot of time for it.
Yeah. But I suppose it's that point of difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can sometimes it's nothing to do with the painting or the sculpting. No. It's just you can tell the love or the effort that someone's just put in, and that makes you pause and want to follow it, right? And want to see it.
And I think that's something for me as well. For my own hobby goals, is something I would like to do is to create something that had that level of effort into it.
Yeah. You've been saying that for a while now. I think.
Yeah,
that's good, right? It's still.
Yeah, I want
coming back to that, right?
Yeah, not something that's completely, made up in my head, but I take something from the hobby world and make it mine. I think is something I want to do.
Sounds good. Well, yeah. So that's it for the Paint Cultists. So If there is any topics you'd like us to discuss, or accounts or people that you think we should follow or highlight or do whatever, then please feel free to get in touch with us. All the usual social media places, emails, and all the rest of it. I always do my best to get back to you if I can. If you're watching this back, like, subscribe, all of that thing, it really, really helps us. Patrons, as ever, you're the best, and we don't get to do this without the help that you guys give us. How did you feel about it then? The guard episode wasn't too bad.
No, I liked it. It was good.
I think we avoided the potential many pitfalls.
Skirted that pretty well.
that you can get into with guard.
How badly do you want to collect a guard army now, though? That's the main question. Because mine was
doing all right.
Quite bad.
I was doing all right until the Cadia stands photo came up near the end.
I was doing all right until I saw the Imperial armor books. Then I was fucked.
I'm going to paint the Dawn. And I'm going to paint it in the military modelling style. I'm going to bang it up on YouTube as soon as we can get our hands on it.
Yeah.
Really excited.
I think
about it.
I'm going to paint. I'm going to finish my Kree kill team. That's what I'm going to do. So
I think
I finish my Kree kill team. And because, I can play with them and they're a good... dip my toe into that world, and I want to paint a Sentinel. Other than that, I think I'm okay.
Well, Ben, you're painting millions of them. Can't wait.
I don't want to say doomed because that's quite a defeatist word. However, yeah, I've got a lot of guard in my future. I've got plans, schemes.
Yeah,
never well intent.
Going to be awesome. And Matt getting ready for Monty this year. Infiltrate the historicals with the little tank that could
make them confused.
Get them in, get it going backwards and forwards. So thanks for joining me, chaps. That was a really fantastic chat. I really, really enjoyed it. And most of all, thanks as ever to the chat. Great questions, great bit of nattering going on with there. It's nice to see a bunch of Guard fans in there and some new names as well. So thanks, chaps. Thanks, chat. And we'll see you next time.